Psalms 105. I thought I was going to make a little progress yesterday, but I sure didn't. Uh, we're in verse 5. I knocked off that first phrase. Remember the wonders he has done. You got to remember them. And why? Let's see if we can find out. Remember the wonders he has done, his miracles and the judgments he pronounced. You, his servants, the descendants of Abraham, his chosen ones, the children of Jacob. Here's why I think, a couple of reasons why I think remembering the wonders that God has done is so important for us and was for them. First of all, we need the reminder. I'll just put it this way. I need the reminder of God's presence, of his wisdom, of his justice, of his love. I need that. There will never come even a moment where I don't need it. Now, there are a lot of times when I don't think I need it, or I am not acutely aware of my need. Doesn't change the fact that I always, always, always need to remember what God has done and is doing. Okay, his miracles. Some people believe finding a parking place is a miracle. I'm not there. There are others who it would have to be resurrecting the dead before it fits in the miracle category. But there are miracles. Those did not cease. I've shared with you my own experience. I know God still performs miracles. And I also know this about his miracles. This is my personal experience with miracles. He didn't do miracles on my behalf because I deserved it. He did them for two reasons: because of my need and because of his love. Okay, his miracles. If you start in Genesis and you read your way through, you're going to see a lot of different miracles. In fact, we used to have a book in our church library in my very first ministry that was, the title of the book was All the Miracles of the Bible. That's a big book. There are lots of miracles. We got to remember them. Don't lose track of them, and don't bust right past them. Okay. By the way, if you feel like you'd really like to stretch your brain, then dive into C.S. Lewis's book, Miracles, in which he gives a very strong intellectual and philosophical defense of the concept of miracles. And he also offers some, I think, wonderful and very intelligent insight into what really is a miracle. And in his opinion, a miracle is when God intervenes in the natural order of things to alter the proceeding. And he said it way better than I can. Miracles. And the judgments he pronounced. Now, this is a little bit weird, especially I think to American minds, to remember the wonders he has done, the miracles, and the judgments he pronounced. Well, I get, the wonders and the miracles. Yeah, that's a very positive thing. The judgments he pronounced? Okay, we need to read this through the lens of the Jews hundreds of years before Jesus. The Jewish nation, ever since its establishment, and it was not established politically, it was established spiritually by God, beginning with Abraham, who was at that time known as Abram. And yet, Israel, excuse me, was a nation of tribes for hundreds of years. Then they were captive after being held captive in Egypt, they left. They exited, thus the Exodus. And in the wilderness, there was all kinds of challenges, including the challenge of selfish rebellion. Anyway, I could go on and on about the Hebrew history, but they faced adversity constantly from the beginning. And by the time this psalm was written, Saul had been the first king, and he disqualified himself by somewhere between just downright pride and misunderstanding, but he disqualified himself. And behind him came David. Both Saul and David, in their reigns as king of Israel, they they were in more or less constant warfare with the nations around them. And God pronounced judgment against those nations, not because he just didn't like them, or not because of some random capricious decision, but because these people refused to acknowledge and know him as God. Okay. That doesn't fit with us. I mean, it doesn't with me. And yet, let's think about this. God has pronounced a very strong judgment post-Calvary. Here's his judgment. If you choose for yourself to not acknowledge and accept salvation through Christ by grace and faith, your eternal destiny is hell. We don't even like to talk about that. It'll drive people away. Well, I mean, it's a reality. I don't like to talk about cancer, but it's a reality. And honestly, I don't like to talk about hell, but it truly is a reality, and that there will come a day of judgment. One of the things about my view of the end of the world is that when Jesus returns, Revelation makes it clear, he's not coming back as a diplomatic peacemaker. He's not coming back to further promote the theories and philosophies of his way of life. He's coming back as a conquering king. And I believe he will set to rights everything that is wrong about the world today. His judgment will not only be pronounced, but will be executed. Okay. It's not in our favor to get all hung up on that, but it is also not in our favor to forget the fact that Jesus is going to come to execute justice on the earth. Okay. Then he goes on, you, his servants, the descendants of Abraham, his chosen ones, the children of Jacob. All right, that phrase, his chosen ones, is central to the psalmist's view of the world and life. Before Jesus, before his death, burial, and resurrection, God had a chosen people, not some chosen people. His chosen people were quite simply Jews. Either you were born into Judaism, right? Or there was another way to become a Jew. It was called proselytization. It you there was a in the Old Testament is given as not quite a formula, but it is at least a directive on how a Gentile could convert and become a Jew. Well, anybody else, they were not chosen. And then Jesus comes on the scene and he preaches a gospel, the message of good news. And the best news of all, for me, because I'm a Gentile, is he's chosen me too. And he's chosen you. And I believe that every human being is chosen. But every human being is given the choice of whether they will say yes to this chosenness. Part of the Calvinist theology is that there is a limited election, meaning there are just a certain few that God has chosen to be saved. I don't agree with that. There's at least two places in the New Testament where the apostle Paul and the apostle Peter make it clear it is not God's will that anyone should perish, but that all should come to repentance, to the knowledge of God. And okay, that kind of sounds to me like this offer is to everyone who exists. And the choice then is there's Lewis again writes, God won't send anybody to hell. He will only observe their wishes, because they would choose for themselves. And if you don't choose Jesus, harsh as it sounds, you're choosing hell. Well, okay, I can go on, but I don't want to. Okay, quickly to end our time today, the beginning of verse 6, you his servants, the descendants of Abraham, his chosen ones, children of Jacob, you his servants. When you are chosen, there is this potential conflict between serving as a chosen one and being served as a chosen one. Evidently, God's design is old, that his chosen people would be his servants. Modern religion has gotten that twisted around, where God is there to make us happy. God is there to give us what we want. God is there to make our lives easy. He's always at work for a breakthrough. No. Yes, he does provide breakthroughs. But his job description is not the one who makes all happy. Happiness is not his aim. It's a secondary outcome. Holiness is his aim. And we don't, as his holy chosen people, we are not the judges. We're the servants. Looking down the gun barrel of a new year, I wonder if maybe part of what we ought to do as we think about coming on of this 2024 is refocus and reset our mind on the idea that we're his chosen people and his servants. What would that look like in the year ahead? Well, I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.